Yes, I know, the title might not be the most controversial take in the world, but I'm just stating the obvious. What else was I supposed to put in the title? Clickbait? Before we get to talking about the video subject in some detail, I'd like to share a story of how I got to read this beauty of a manga. And it all started when a bit of a personal story, but a story integral to how I found this work of art. It was after high school. I had just graduated, questioning what was the next move in life. I felt lost. I didn't have an idea of what to do for a while. It was genuinely scary. In the time I had, I would be like everybody else, reading manga or watching movies or playing games. In this time, I would eventually stumble upon the manga named Slam Dunk. Seeing that it had basketball in it, I gave it a read. 276 chapters later, that feeling of being lost had went away, replaced with a more hopeful, more determined feeling. This might be me overthinking it. I feel this manga has found me at the right time, and the message I got by reading the manga further fueled the passion I had for pursuing my goals. A seemingly unrelated story about a transitionary period of my life, but I felt I should tell the story, and the first thing I think I should talk about is the man behind this work of art. Takehiko Inoue is a name that most people know, so I won't take too much time. Essentially, he is a manga artist responsible for the topic of the video, and the mangas I'm showing on screen as well. And as I'm sure you can tell, he is a basketball fan. In fact, he used to be a captain of a basketball club when he went to school. If you ever watched a video of Takehiko Inoue, documentary or interview, you know that he is a perfectionist. In this clip, when he draws something that is slightly off, he just throws it away. To think or clear his head, he plays basketball. But he is a man who is very passionate about his craft. And that is really what is to be expected by a man of his reputation. Anyways, sorry for rambling. What if you had a manga about a delinquent who fell in love with basketball? Sakuragi is a high schooler with a quest like some of us to find love, which he has failed at. Of course, it isn't until he meets Haruko, who, unlike the girls he has previously met, doesn't run off. Instead, Haruko recognizes his athleticism. I wish I had some. And in Haruko, shows that she likes somebody else, Rukawa. Of course, this deters Sakuragi from wanting any part of basketball, and for a while, it seems like all hope is lost, until he meets Gorilla Face or Akagi, who challenges Sakuragi to a 1v1 handicap match. And let's just say, like a Flight Reacts 1v1, things go bad for Sakuragi. Even with her athleticism, he is outmatched by Akagi as he scores 9 straight points. However, Haruko says to Sakuragi, stop messing around, which had Sakuragi lock in. He steals the ball and dunks on Akagi, winning the match. Fortunately or unfortunately, this makes Sakuragi delusional enough to join the basketball team and attempt to earn Haruko's love, starting our journey of Slam Dunk. Speaking of Sakuragi, now would be the best time to talk about why I like him as a character. Slam Dunk is the perfect manga for people who are getting into basketball because he acts like a self-insert in the manga. As Sakuragi learns more and more about basketball, so do we. As he learns to dribble, so do we. As he learns to shoot, so do we. This change from chapter 1 to 276 is peak writing. At first, he is looking for love, hopelessly aiming around, but at the end, he finds it in basketball. Rukawa is a man who is by definition a basketball savant. Every day, every night, he refines his basketball skills tirelessly. However, since he is so devoted to the sport and is a loner, he is somewhat of a selfish player sometimes. But Rukawa is probably my favorite player on the team. Kagi is the veteran and vocal leader of the team and gets everyone in line whether they do something wrong or not, always making sure to get the best out of his guys. With a dream to get a scholarship to college, the problem is that it's his last year to obtain that championship. Miyagi, no, not that one, yes, is driven by the same thing Sakuragi is, and many more as you learn. And he first joined when Akagi was in the second year, and let's just say things weren't going well. Miyagi, being a smaller point guard, has only speed and wit to beat the other point guards of his prefecture. Mitsui is the 3-point specialist, and he's great at a lot of other things, but prior, he was a delinquent who resented basketball caused by a knee injury that sat him out for 2 years. However, after a run-in with Sakuragi and his gang, he vows not to fight again and join basketball again. Mitsui is probably my second favorite character in the manga, because while he runs out of stamina during most of the games, he ultimately wins with sheer mental strength. And his story as a man who rediscovers his passion is well done. There are many more characters in the Slam Dunk manga, but those will be most important. With different people in a group, there are different dynamics. And this is done really well in Slam Dunk, almost to perfection. Miyagi and Sakuragi get along really well, but Rukawa and Sakuragi don't get along for obvious reasons. And sometimes Mitsui and Akagi don't get along. And sure, the team chemistry at first is a little wonky because of all this, but as the story progresses, you feel more and more the connection the team has with one another. For example, the most well-known moment is the iconic high five between Rukawa and Sakuragi, which in itself is probably the greatest moment, showcasing how far the two came. There are many more moments, but if I were to talk about them, I would rob you of one of the most peak experiences ever. But at the end of a manga, you feel that after everything they have went through, a genuine bond has been made between the gang. Of course, dynamics and the story itself are peak, but if you're an Inoue fan, you know one thing's for certain. Art is also peak. Inoue goes through a big transformation in his art in Slam Dunk, and the comparison I make is JoJo Part 4's manga. There are just clear panels that are night and day. Not to say the beginning art is bad, this is leagues above what I could draw, but Inoue's art in the end almost looks 3D. You can see what was going on in the beginning, but I would say around the halfway mark or after is where you feel what's going on, and part of that is due to Inoue's evolution in art, but the other part is that his ability to demonstrate motion is really good. In some of his panels and covers in the manga, they're clearly inspired by real-life images from the NBA, which for some odd reason had a whole Reddit user hating, but I think this is really cool. If you're a fan of the NBA, you'll also recognize what aspects of certain players that each character derives inspiration from. In their playstyle, Sakuragi is obviously Dennis Rodman, MJ, Pat Ewing, the list goes on. I'm getting close to the ending, so the ending is a 50-50 depending on who you are. You either like the ending or you don't. And for me, when I first read this manga, I was a hater. In my head, I was thinking, damn, they really did all this to not win the chip? After a couple months marinating on the thought, I thought to myself, maybe it isn't so bad. And I came to a new realization. Now, this is just my perspective on why they had to lose in the end. Of course, I'm sure this is far off from what the author intended, but hear me out. After a grueling match and some injuries, the team was gassed, and they lose in embarrassing fashion. And sure, while a loss like this might deter someone or your average Joe from the sport altogether, the team of Shohoku High love for basketball was further bolstered, showing us that 1, their love for basketball is real, but that they would continue to pursue it as long as they can. And I think if they would have won the championship, while it would have been bittersweet, it wouldn't have had the same substance as them losing. Maybe I'm just reading too far into it, but that's my thought process on it. I would like to see y'all's perspective on the manga too. Like I said, reading Slam Dunk was a real eye-opener for me, as it reignited my passion for this whole YouTube thing. I'm not driven by these things, but I just like talking about stuff like this. A piece of manga like this is something I thought didn't really exist, but here I am making a video on it. If you somehow have not read Slam Dunk yet, what are you doing? Go read it. But in all seriousness, this is one of my favorite mangas ever. It takes two of my favorite things, delinquents and basketball, and puts them in one. And somehow this weird combination works way too well. Peak experience, peak manga from chapter 1 to 276. This is a joyride from top to bottom. Anyways, like I said, let me know what you guys thought of the manga. Peace.